Now, as we discussed about the different establishment procedures, how the functioning of democracy, how the division of powers happens, what is the concept of federalism, and how to understand democracy, the different forms of democracy, all these things, and the major role of political parties, what are the outcomes of democracy that we all have seen. Now, our focus of attention turns towards the final chapter, that is the challenges of democracy. This is the 8th chapter. What we have is the challenges to democracy. So, what are the challenges to democracy? As we all know, thinking about the concept of understanding what are the challenges. Challenge is something which is difficult to achieve. It's not that we can't achieve. Challenge is something like which is very tough to achieve that one, which may be a difficult task to reach to that one. But we can do that. So the point is, what are the challenges of democracy? When we think about the challenges, think about the challenges. What are the challenges of the present day? What were the major problems that we have? What would be the possible solution for this? What are the next things that have to be done to make democracy a lively one? Before going into the details, as you all know, you have observed, like in the entire world, we have nearly 194 countries in UN, United Nations. So, out of 205 or 206 countries, we have nearly 194 countries being the members of United Nations group. So, among these, we have 120 countries who follow democracy. So it is very clear fundamentally that out of 194, 120 are the democratic nations. The rest of the 74 countries are not following democracy, are not aligned towards democracy. They are having different various other forms of governments. So it's very clear for us that the fundamental question itself comes that nearly 1/4 of the countries in the world do not follow democracy. Nearly the 1/4 of the countries in the world do not follow democracy. So it is very clear and very evident for us that when it comes to democracy, or when it comes to the issue of the number of countries following or do not following democracy, following are 2/3, 1/3 of them still are in the starting stage of democracy. They need to get transformed from the existing form of government to the democratic structure. So this is called the period of transformation. So the period of transformation means like you need to have a clear transition from the existing form of government to the new form of government. So the first challenge which you need to understand is transition. Transition means a system of change. From where do you want it to be changed? What is the system that has to be changed? How can they change? What are the major things that need to be changed? Major things need to be changed is the form of government. From the existing government towards democracy. Let us take few examples which we have around India. Let us take an example of Myanmar. In Myanmar, we have the military dictatorship taking over the power in the past 2 decades. So from the past 2 decades, they are still in the period of transition to come towards democracy. So it is the first fundamental concept is that they are not in a democratic structure. So in order to establish democracy itself is a big challenge for them. They need to fight the existing system in order to come across out of the reach, and then they can move towards to establish the democracy. The situations are turning completely changed and reversed because of the understanding of the situation. Now the point is, when we need to change, first of all you need to keep the military out of administration. The military has to be kept out of the administration. That is a major tough task for the countries who are in a position or a period of transition from the existing form of governments to the modern form of democracy. When the period of transformation is required, first they need to alert or keep the military out of the control or concepts of administration. If you can do like this, if you can implement this one, we can obviously do certain things. We can obviously get the transformation done. But until and unless military is kept away from this, you cannot expect them that we can have a rapid change occurring from this. Because when we see the examples in Myanmar, you can see the military taking over the entire control, where no other political party dares to talk even against them. Then, when it comes to Pakistan, most of the times military dictators only take over power in Pakistan. Most of the times military rulers force the leaders to conclude treaties. Most of the times military leaders will take the in charge of certain segments. So these kind of developments should be arrested. In order to arrest these kind of developments, the leaders or the political scenario or the political leaders should take a stiff stand that to keep away the military from the regular administration transactions. If this can be done, then it would become easy for them to have a transition from the existing form of government to the modern form of government. If this is not done, it leads to the revolts, outbreak of the anger of the people. We have seen this example in Nepal. In Nepal, when the king tried to have all controls under him and he suspended the parliament, he abolished the parliament, he did not want to re-establish the parliament, then it rose the anger of the people. They went for strike. Lakhs of people moved out of their houses and brought effect on the day-to-day administration of the king's palace. So they came outside, they started to showcase their anger. So this kind of movements will be repeated in case if you do not be able to control the military successfully. And the anger of the people would be turning into a severe state, where we have seen in Egypt, the people have revolted in a very larger manner. In Libya, the military dictator Gaddafi was overthrown by the people's revolts. So these kind of things all will be the major turnouts when we are not able to manage military properly. One day or the other, soon or the later, you may get to chase the anger of the people. So these kind of things have to be addressed very seriously when the modern world is being changing very fast. And also we need to understand that the major challenge of any democratic country is to reach to people. The major challenge for any democratic country is to reach to people. It has to be understood very clearly, because when we talk about the reaching to people, the point is the people are made compulsory to follow, to understand certain rules, certain guidelines in democracy. When the certain rules and certain guidelines are given in democracy and you are supposed to follow them, but you could not follow them, it means that we are in necessity to do certain changes. We must have certain clear pictures on what has to be done, because when I talk about the reaching to people, in reality, in practicality, democracy is a form of government which will be taken over by any of the political parties. So, in most of the villages in India or any other village or agricultural backdrop country, people associate the government policies with the policies of the parties. They know government only through the terms of parties, only through the terms of the symbols. Let us take Congress. Congress is known to the common man only with the symbol of the hand. TDP is known to the common man only with the symbol of bicycle or the yellow color, or by the charismatic leader Mr. N.T. Ramarao. So all these things make a very clear picture for us that they are following or analyzing the political situations of any government basing on the party stands. They do not have a clarity on what a government is. They truly remember that parties do run the governments, but the fact is party once takes over the responsibility of the government, it is the responsibility of the government to ensure equality for all the people. It should not show any kind of favoritism to any sections of people or any group of people. This understanding has to be very clearly in depth to all the people. So the major challenge is not only for any newly established democratic country, but the most experienced countries and the largest countries in the world, USA and India, also do face this kind of challenges. And next, the major important thing what we have is the deepening of democracy. When we talk about the deepening of democracy, the democracy deepening has become very wide and very deep. Why it has to become very deep and very wide? As we discussed earlier, democracy is nothing but the best form of government of the modern day when it is compared with the previous forms or the dictatorship forms or any other existing forms. Why is it termed to be the best one? Because it provides opportunity for all the people to have their own say or understanding of the policies. If the people are not satisfied with the government, they can change the government or they can ask the government to change their stand on the policy, which makes it very clear for us that democracy is nothing but the clear representative of the people. But if people only do not have idea of what are their rights and what are their rules and what are the policies and what are the programs of the government, that obviously affects not only the government but also all the other segments which are connected with the people's day-to-day life. So it becomes very difficult, very tragic for the people to understand and analyze the practical situations which are happening in the government. So the deepening of democracy makes it very clear for the people to understand what actually the democracy needs, what you can do the best. The best is behave in a clear picture, give people the clear picture of what has to be done, what is the idea that has to be done. So these all things are very, very important and requires to be taken care carefully. If the deepening is not provided for the democratic structure, it becomes centralized structure where you have union governments and the state governments may getting limited powers, and when it comes to the local bodies, the local third tier system do not have clarity or powers, so which will get the maximum number of villagers, the maximum number of people getting interacted to each other. So these all interactions are must and mandatory in democracy. If the local people are not getting interacted and connected with the policies, then they would not be understanding what the state government is doing, then they may not be understanding or maybe far away from what the union government want to do. So these all kinds of things will definitely affect the situations and brings democracy into a question mark situation. So it is clear to understand that we must have a proper understanding of democracy, and it is the responsibility of the governments to make sure that every individual or every citizen of the nation also should be able to understand what are the policies and how does the governments work. So in this way, it is really a very tough challenge to make the uneducated people or the connectivity very less in the villages, to make them to understand what is a democracy, how does it work, what are the policies of the government and all these things. So communication network plays a very vital role in these regards. So when our concept is like thinking about the challenges, we need to understand first of all what are the challenges. When do we call this as a challenge? When something is really a very tough situation comes over ahead, that is called a challenge, which means that you need to put your entire capabilities to fight against that one. These kind of scenarios will bring for us a certain new developments and changes. In 19 out of the 194 countries which are registered in the UN and have the membership of UN, but only 120 countries fall under the category of democracy. Nearly 1/4 of the countries do not fall under the category of democracy. And now in these 1/4 countries there are certain kind of revolutions going on, certain kind of changes occurring, and that is called the period of transition, which has to be changed first in the form of the governing system has to be changed, where for to have the existing change of the government from here to the new form of government, we need to understand clearly the military administration should be kept out of the regular administration. Military leaders, military capabilities, military dictatorship should be kept away. Military should be at the disposal of the leader, but not to make the leader to work according to the interest of the military. That is really a major tough question now when it comes to this transition period. And then we also have the challenges coming up, whether is it able to reach to the people or not, whether the entire structural levels are understood by the people or not. Really the deepening of the democracy is being taught to the people or not. If the people are not able to understand how the democracy works and how can they prove that we have a structural democracy at the union level, state level and the local level, then it becomes a really tough point for them to understand practically what is happening or what kind of decisions have to be taken. Then it makes the people to become just merely inactive citizens, rather than making them an active citizens. They turn into subjects rather than being as the citizens.
If you like this video, please give a thumbs up. Please subscribe to our channel to get more videos on CBSE syllabus.